Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of In the Prog Seat here on Tuesday night. We've got in the house tonight, we've got Sean Tonar, Chuck Alvarez, and George Lamie, fresh off of his gig with the Hudson Valley Squares last night. I think you're kind of moonlighting on In the Prog Seat here, George. But I want to thank everyone for joining. So this is a show tonight that we've been talking about for a long time. This is the All Allan Holdsworth show. So what we've decided to do, instead of just doing a straight Allan Holdsworth album ranking, what we've done is I've asked everybody here on the panel to pick their 5 favorite Allan Holdsworth solo albums, studio solo albums, rank the top 5, and then we're going to also, because we have to, take a look at our favorite Allan Holdsworth appearances in other bands and projects and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do first is we're going to tackle the solo stuff first. We're going to start at number 5, work our way to number 1, and then we'll move on to the guest appearances stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have, we're going to go George, Chuck, and Sean and myself, and then continue to work our way around. And then we'll do the same for the second half of the show. So George, what do you got for us at number 5?
Number 5 is Secrets from 1989. Most notable for me because Vinnie Colaiuta's on it. He's always a pleasure to listen to. It's kind of a mixed bag, but the good tracks on here really stand out. I like City Nights. I like Spokes. I like Peril Premonition. More of the jammier stuff on there is the stuff that I go for on this one, but that'd be my number 5.
And I don't have that on CD. I used to have that on a cassette. I would held it up. I think that's one that I don't have. I thought I did, but that's a pretty good one.
Okay, I think I have a copy of it.
Cool.
All right.
That's right. There he is. Yep.
All right.
Very cool.
All
right, Chuck, what do you got for number 5?
Okay, my number 5 is Sand. So that, when I first saw this, I was expecting like a Gong type of thing, being that it looked very much like Shamal from Gong, the album cover, but with some pretty much shredding on there. The title track is awesome. That Pudwood is one of my favorite songs by him as well. And the 415 Bradford Executive, another great song on here. It's a pretty good album. I love this solo album. Once again, this is Allan Holdsworth's Sand.
I mean, has he ever released a bad album? I don't think.
Well, even with his with the Avatron, whatever that gadget that he was using, it's still a pretty good album. Syntax.
Even those albums that are purely dominated by that instrument, I think there's a lot to like on those. He always has a great band, and even though it's not a pure guitar sound, it's still Holdsworth doing his like acrobatic stuff. That's what made him so great. I mean, he could have done that on a trumpet, on a saxophone, on a xylophone, on a guitar. It doesn't matter. It's still Holdsworth doing all that incredible stuff, right? Yeah. All right, Sean, what do you got for number 5?
Well, I had Sand, but I've got a backup, so it's good. I would like to say a couple things about Sand, though. I want to point out that awesome bass solo from Jimmy Johnson on Pug.
Oh, on Pugwood, yeah.
That's awesome stuff. And it's all pretty much syntax, but it's informed by Allan's wonderful harmonic sense. So it's never boring. So it's good stuff. In lieu of that, I'm going to go with Hard Hat Area, which is a bit of a different approach for him. It was a little more, yeah. I mean, it's almost got this
2 different covers, right? There we go.
And as the name implies, it almost has a little bit of a mechanical feel to some of the tracks, almost like you're at a factory or something. And on top of that, all this amazing soloing. So good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any idea how to pronounce that second song on there?
Rakuka?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a standout.
it's great.
Rakuka, right?
Rakuka.
Like that. I don't know.
I don't know.
Stuff.
Good stuff. All right, my number 5, I'm going to go to 1992's Wardenclyffe Tower.
Oh, brilliant album.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of after the heavy syntax period, right? He still plays it on here, but I think here he's starting to get back to more guitar stuff. A lot of great solos on this album. And you got some of the best drummers ever alive playing on here. You got Vinnie Colaiuta, Chad Wackerman, Gary Husband, Jimmy Johnson on bass. Words cannot describe how good Jimmy Johnson is, right?
Oh,
I mean,
he's
he
brilliant.
is like so important to every album he's ever played on. Gordon Beck and Steve Hunt on keyboards, right? You got 5 to 10 completely burns on here. Sphere of Innocence kind of has that like Holdsworth atmospheric thing going on. Really cool chord voicings. Sean, that guy's fingers does things that the rest of us could only dream of doing.
Well, it's like there's a few books that transcribe his stuff, and they almost come with a written warning at the beginning about tendonitis.
Please don't try this at home, right?
He had huge hands, and he had a stretch that was just, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And trying to do some of those chords, it's just, it's like a finger twister.
Yeah.
And you notice he never strums. He's not a strummer at all.
That's
it's all
correct.
about plucking them almost like a piano, hitting all of them at once and then swelling into them or bathing them in chorus or whatever. And that's a big part of his sound. It's rather otherworldly and kind of unguitaristic.
Yeah, that's one of the many things that make him so unique. Yeah. But this is a good album. Zarabeth got a great solo on here.
The title track.
Really good, and that's one of my favorite, I think, tunes where that kind of features the syntax. But and Chad Wackerman's drumming on here. I know you got a bunch of guys on here.
Amazing. And what a cool theme to make an album around. Tesla's tower where he's going to give everybody wireless electricity. He was ahead of the curve, just like Allan was.
Yep. So that's my number 5. Back to George for number 4.
Keep it out. That's my number 4.
That was my number 4 too.
that was my number 4 too.
Really? Wow, that was a quick turnaround. Holy cow! Does anybody have anything else to say about it?
Yeah, you missed my 2 favorite songs on it are "Dodgy Boat," which is a really fun Steve Hunt composition, and "Questions," which is a Chad Wackerman composition of all time. That's got a real eerie, mysterious feel. So those are 2 of my favorites. And then every song's just got the alien legato runs and
oh yeah, big time. Anybody else want to comment on this wonderful album?
Oh man, well, we basically said everything that goes on with this album. I love this album. I also love the 2 bonus tracks as well, the Unmerry-Go-Round.
Yeah.
Both part of the bonus tracks, both from parts 4 and 5.
Yep.
Allan was just a pretty amazing guy. Just an amazing guy when it came to these crazy albums. Had a nice sense of rhythm, beautiful solos, and great band members as well.
Well, that's what it comes down to, right? He surrounded himself with the greatest players of all time on every album. So you knew he was going to have a crack band. And, we mentioned Chad Wackerman before, and I'm sure we may touch on this on the guest appearances, but, he played on some of Chad's albums. And those are pretty damn great as well, right?
Nope. But too bad he was just so self-efficating. And so this guy really never took his stuff, we marveled at it, but he just looked at himself like, just another day at the trip.
Like a relentless pursuit for perfection,
that sucks.
He basically hated almost everything he did, right?
Yeah. Sadly.
Yeah. Including my number 4 pick.
He's like amazing, but incredibly modest also.
Right, exactly. So this is Velvet Darkness from 1976. And this, out of all of probably these albums we're going to talk about, this is probably the only one that's really firmly rooted in like 70s fusion. It definitely sounds from that time period. He hated this. He was really upset when they released this. And
behind his back, and no one got paid for it. No one got paid for it.
That doesn't help, right? But a really good album.
It really is.
Oh yeah.
If you love Tony Williams' Lifetime and Mahavishnu and Return to Forever, this kind of fits right in that. Good Clean Filth is absolutely nasty. Alfonso Johnson. Again, we're talking about all these great sidemen that he plays with. I mean, he's just awesome on this album. Narada Michael Walden is on drums on here. Amazing. Alan Pasqua's keyboards. Just so good. God, Kinder is such a great track. Floppy Hat is just totally awesome. Wish has some great electric piano on it. It's really a ensemble album, I think. That's more of a kind of a vehicle for Holdsworth solos, I think. But there's some great stuff on here. You know, got Carsey Key. It's got him playing violin.
Oh yes, I did a pretty good job at it too.
Really good, absolutely. Gatox is a great, 70s fusion burner. So many great things on here. And like I said, it's definitely a different feel than all of his other stuff, basically from the time that it was recorded. He never really did anything quite like this on his own, although this is probably a byproduct of playing with Jean-Luc Ponty and Tony Williams and all these other bands at that time. But I dig this a lot, and it's a great sounding album too, even though a lot of people said this was kind of like very unfinished and kind of demo quality when they first released it. But I think it sounds pretty damn good. And
I love it. I love it.
Yes album does the cover remind you of?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Not quite as good though, right?
Well,
like, something was
lacking butt. Thankfully.
Yeah. All right, George, what do you got?
Keep it out, because that's my number 3. Velvet Darkness. I know a lot of his fanboys don't like it because he didn't like it, and it was they were keeping the tape running while they were jamming, and it was never intended to be released like that, but the end result is it's a good record.
It really is.
Your 70s feel of it compared to all of his other stuff, which tends to get a little clinical and cold sounding sometimes. So my number 3.
Yeah, it doesn't breathe like some of the later Holdsworth solo stuff, because a lot of his later stuff is very kind of atmospheric, and it just has this kind of dreamy quality, whereas
this, technical.
Yeah, exactly. And this is more kind of like in your face, jammy fusion type stuff, which
it's more of that era, or just coming out of that era. So yeah, he definitely evolved over the years, and his taste in what he liked to do changed as well. So that's definitely one of the more burning fusion-y ones, I'd say.
Yeah,
it's got a little grit to it.
It does. Yeah.
Like it rocks. Matter of fact, it's like a second part to the stuff that he did with Tony Williams.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
I agree. And Alfonso Johnson's bass is huge on this album.
Oh, he's just awesome.
And we talked on a recent, in fact, Chuck, you and I talked about it quite a bit on the Weather Report show. There is this cast of drummers from the 70s fusion scene that are just out of this world. And we talked about Cobham, and we talked about Mouzone, and we talked about Lenny White. We got to talk about Narada Michael Walden too.
Oh, another killer drummer.
So good.
He's right up there.
Yeah. All right, Chuck. Back to
you. A style that was really organized.
Very unique.
Exploding with energy, but it was very refined.
Yeah, definitely funky. Yep.
All right. My next one is Hard Hat Area, Allan Holdsworth. I had spent a lot of time listening to this album for quite some time, and I was so happy that we got to do this show. It didn't make my top 2 and so, but I still love this album. Just a nice technical sound. It sounds like he's playing like in a junkyard or something, but it's a pretty good album. The title track is pretty good. Low Levels and High Stakes is another great song off of this. And then once again, Rokuka, if you could call it that, it's another great track from this album. Just loved Holdsworth's sound on here. Nice and mechanical and technical.
Yeah, it was a good blend.
Yep. All right, Sean, what do you got?
I'm going to go with 16 Men of Tane, one of the more recent ones, and it reminds me a bit of Wardenclyffe Tower, but kind of the next step. And I love the cover art too, with all these different masters over the years. Did they all brew beer? Maybe that's the connection there.
Probably, because we know he liked his beer, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And,
Likes his English bitters, right?
He's in there too. He's like second from the left on the second row there, I think.
Yep, that's him.
Yeah, that's him.
I'll hold it up here.
Yeah, that's a really cool one.
Right here.
And I can't really think of a particular track because when I put this one on, I just kind of let it flow, and so I can't really point to anything, but I will say that it's nice. And I think this is one of the ones where he had like acoustic bass, which is kind of gives it a more natural kind of sound. And and I just kind of an evolution. It's like he evolved, in the last 10 years prior to IOU or beyond IOU and all that, so.
Yeah, this is good. I think this is the last one I ever bought. Was this the last full release?
It might be.
Yeah. I think it was. I think it was.
Really so he's got Dave Carpenter on acoustic bass, Gary Novak on drums, Walt Fowler on trumpet, and then Chad Wackerman plays on one track. But this is a very strong album. And I guarantee there's going to be a lot of people watching who have not heard that.
Oh, they need to search it out. It's a pretty good album.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. Oh, back to me. All right. So I'm going to go at number 3. Man, my top 3, I'm like movers and shakers in the last week. I did. They just kept like kind of switching roles and moving around. I went with Road Games.
Oh, excellent.
Which is labeled an EP, but it's like 25 minutes. And most of these albums are like 35 minutes or barely over 30, right? So Holdsworth did not do long albums for the most part. They were very compact, and that's kind of what this is. But man, this packs a wallop. There's like not a weak moment on here. 3 Sheets to the Wind, absolutely great. Road Games, the title track is, great guitar lick, really good Paul Williams vocal. Paul Williams would sing lead vocals on, maybe 2 or 3 tracks on each of his first 3 albums.
Tempest.
What's that? From Tempest. Yeah, his old buddy from Tempest. Yeah. Good singer, really good singer.
He really is.
Have to look. Right? You look at the old live footage from this period. He just didn't really look the part of a singer, but really good vocals. Water on the Brain Part 2 is a total fusion barn burner. Tokyo Dream, such a good song.
Yeah,
such a good song. I mean, I love the chords from Holdsworth. Was There, Material Real both have Jack Bruce on vocals. Just a lovely, lovely album with some, some of it's a little on the aggressive side. Some of it's kind of like the typical atmospheric jazz fusion he was doing around that time period. But I'd say every song on here is really, really strong. I mean, would have been cool if he snuck like 2 more tracks on here to make this a full length, just thing of beauty. Probably would have been my number 1 if it had a little more content on it. But I love it. Always have.
Yeah, that's definitely up on this too. And that's one of the ones from the era when Eddie Van Halen kind of tried to get him a record deal and get him wider, acclaim and attention. And they used Ted Templeman, who produced the Van Halen albums. They also did the Doobie Brothers and a lot of other people. And I think it was still a little too sophisticated for MTV. And I don't recall ever seeing Allan on MTV. But
wow, wishful thinking.
They should have slipped some in on the Headbangers Ball just to mess with people. It's like, all right, And I think the vocal tunes are really catchy. The music's incredibly sophisticated, but he managed to, make some melodies that really sat nicely on those songs. So good.
Just
stuff.
imagine if they did a video in the beginning of the video here, dun, 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 and it was like dun, dun. The people at the Headbangers Ball folks would be watching like, wait a second, what just happened here? It's like,
what is that?
Hold on.
And how about Jeff Berlin and Chad Wackerman on this album, huh?
Oh man, killer band.
And the live stuff from around then, there's a live DVD where he's playing the Red Strat.
Yeah.
Top shelf stuff and just mind boggling to see.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They used to play that. It was a cable channel. They used to play like live stuff a lot back in the early mid 80s. And they used to always play that Holdsworth concert really late at night. I don't remember what it was.
68.
Might have been, yeah, that might have been it, Chuck. That might have been it. And I remember after I saw that, like, I got to get this on VHS, right? And I went out and found a VHS copy of it. But, I digress. All right, where are we, George? What do you got?
My number 2 is None Too Soon. from 1996. It is Allan's Standards album. So his take on
No, I don't have that.
jazz standards, all over the place. Chick Corea, John Coltrane, Django Reinhardt. I mean, going through a bunch of standards, and he's got the tribal tech rhythm section behind him, and his frequent collaborator Gordon Beck on keyboard. It's a chance to hear Allan rip over changes that he didn't write. I mean, for me, it's fantastic. I know probably some people were disappointed they didn't get another album of originals out of him at the time, but you know, this is a one of a kind, so that's what I like about it.
I thought he did a very good job on that. I don't have a copy of that here, but I thought he did a pretty good cover of that album. I love all the songs on there as well.
I need that.
Yeah, me too.
I think you guys will like it.
Yeah, I've heard it. I can't believe I don't own it. So I'm like,
I don't have it either. I thought I had it here, but no, I don't have it.
I think it went out of print pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, he could play anything, absolutely anything.
And very good too. Very great, actually.
I caught him live back, geez, I guess it was in the either late 80s or early 90s, the Jazz Explosion tour. Him and Stanley Clark and Steve Smith and Randy Brecker. Crazy good.
Forgive me. Anthony and I were supposed to see him right before he passed away. We were thinking about going to the Iridium. He was talking, we were making plans, and all of a sudden he just passed away. Yeah. And we were kind of bummed about that. 4 years later. My number two, what's it, 16 Men of Tame? That's my number two. Another outstanding album by him, one of the last ones that he did in his lifetime. And I cherish this album. I love listening to his tone right before he passed away, and he was still evolving. The music on here is very well done. Once again, it's hard pressed to find anything that he's done that really wasn't bad or anything. And this is probably one of his upper echelon albums. Love the album. Very well done, very well played. I can't say any more on it that you haven't said yourself. It's a great album, 16 Men of Tame.
How cool is it when you have an artist or a band who have been around a long time, and you have a deep love for a lot of their material, and they put out an album like that so late in their career, in their catalog, that's as mind-blowingly good as that album, right?
Great album.
Well, of all people, I would, Allan was relentless. He was restless in his pursuit for, new sounds. So yeah, thank you, Allan.
Definitely.
All right, Sean, number two.
I'm going to go with Metal Fatigue. That's kind of the companion to Road Games. Put them together and you have one normal album. But think about, Ted Templeman, Van Halen, how long were their records, Maybe there's a connection there,
Yeah, true.
And this one, it has that amazing tune, Devil Take the Hindmost, which has one of his most amazing solos. It's one of my favorites. And another catchy vocal tune called Panic Stations. That's, you can almost play that on MTV. And then, of course, we mentioned the Unmerry-Go-Round before. That's become, one of his standards, I would say. And this is where it first appeared. So yeah, another Templeman produced one, and just a great companion to Road Games.
Love it. Yeah, it is. They kind of go hand in hand. They really do.
They do. This one has a little more scrank to it, with the name and the title and stuff.
My number two was almost my number one. I actually changed it this morning. Is IOU.
Yeah, that's my number one too. It's hard to pick something else,
Yeah, it could be my number one any day. It was yesterday. Today it's my number two. It's such a great listen. I mean, here you got the band. It's Paul Williams on vocals, Gary Husband on drums and piano, Paul Carmichael on bass. You have a mix of vocal tunes and instrumental songs. You got The Things You See, which is one of his classic songs. That's got Paul on vocals. Really catchy song. It's kind of jazzy. It's kind of poppy. Really, really good. The Letters of Marquis, Killer solo on
That's
it.
what I was going to mention.
Yeah, it's such a great song. Where is One? Just killer. White Line is great. Temporary Fault. Out From Under. How about that riff on that, huh?
Killer.
I mean, just there's not a bad song on here. And it's just really, it's not an overly aggressive album other than in a couple spots, but it's just really intelligent, whatever you want to call it, jazz fusion, just really great ensemble playing. And I think this is Holdsworth at the top of his game. Great compositions too. I do want to remember, like I do want to mention, everything on this album kind of makes sense. And even if it's like different type of music than you normally would listen to, it's very tuneful. Right, very memorable. All the songs are really memorable. So yeah, IOU for today. Anyway, my number 2.
2 different colored covers too. You might see it out there as a black one or a red.
Because I have it on black.
You do?
I think that was the original pressing.
That was the original vinyl pressing. Yeah,
I want to say, yeah.
All right, George. Drum roll for number 1.
You called it earlier. It's a Tavacron.
We were chit chatting earlier today, and I was like, you're not going to pick out of a collision number 1. He was like, silence. I'm like, okay.
Me personally, I don't care that it's largely syntax. That instrument doesn't bother me.
Compositions are great, right? I mean,
it's a great album. No, I think it's a fantastic album.
More about composition.
And notice the shirt.
I'd be worried about his future wearing a red shirt like that, but
Wow.
Alan's got the power to avoid that trap.
I care
Like,
more
I'm
about
not beaming down there, Jim. I'll fly the ship. You go down there.
I mean, the instrumentation is secondary to me to the compositions. I love Non-Brewed Condiments, one of my favorite songs. Looking Glass, Mr. Burwell, the title track. He loved funnels. I mean, that was in his live set all the way till the end. I mean, pretty much I like every song except the last song's a little snoozy, but yeah, for me, it's just the most consistent album.
And look who's on here again: Jimmy Johnson, Gary Husband, Alan Pasqua. A couple other guys: Tony Williams, Chad Wackerman.
Can't beat that.
Those guys, right?
Still a great album.
Sounding album, but
It reminds me of Sand a bit. It feels
They're
like
very
it belongs in that era. It is.
Yep. He's still doing all the same Holdsworthian stuff. That's the thing. He's just not doing it on his little Steinberger guitar or his Charvel. He's doing it on this, weird ass thing here that he put together, right?
Yeah.
It really is an ugly instrument, isn't it?
It really is, man. It's kind of creepy.
Wild. It almost looks like some bagpipes at a glance.
Like a broken banjo.
Right. He loved it, right? It's all that matters, right?
Oh man, I'm trying to think of anybody else that played it to the extreme that he did.
I can't think of anybody. I could just think of guitar synthesizers like Fripp and Ballou and Matheny used, that Roland one.
Right.
That was kind of the go-to for most people that couldn't handle the learning curve that came with the one Alan used.
Yeah.
And McLaughlin had the Synclavier.
Right.
Yes. How can we forget about that?
So a lot of guys were using something, they were embracing technology, but yeah, nothing quite as like hideous looking as the Syntax.
Cumbersome, that's the word.
Yeah, cumbersome. All right. That's a nicer way to say it, Chuck.
Oh man. All right, guys. My number 1 is Metal Fatigue. We've already spoken pretty much about how great this album is. The companion to IOU. Devil Takes the Hindmost is one of those songs that I think that's his signature moment right there, where you got to see how great he was as a composer, how great he was as a guitarist, and the band behind him, just like I said, there isn't just this album. I could listen to this album over and over again. It's a pretty short album too. It's not one of the longest albums around. You're listening to it, and all of a sudden it's over. You have to just play it right back all over again. I had this on cassette and popped that within like 2 weeks because I used to listen to it so much. Allan Holdsworth at his best. Metal Fatigue, my number 1.
Excellent.
There you go. All right, Sean, you're number 1.
IOU. So I just
Brilliant.
I'll echo your thoughts and comments. It's just, it's kind of like ground zero for Allan in a way, and with good reason. It's one of his best, and it really kind of lays out what you're going to encounter in the future. Although it kept evolving and getting more sophisticated. But,
Oh yeah.
you could tell that was the first one where he had a chance to say, this is exactly the way I want it.
Right.
And,
This is all me. Right. Yeah.
yeah, and it's
Absolutely.
it's a must. It's almost like if you don't have any Allan, I'd probably start there.
I wouldn't argue that.
Nice pick.
My number one.
Yes. Metal fatigue.
Number two yesterday. And you guys talked about all the great stuff on here, so I don't really need to repeat. I will mention Home, which is a bit different for him. I mean, you don't hear him on acoustic all that much, and that's really lovely track. But I mean, everybody's on here too. You got Gary Husband, you got Gary Willis is on a track or two on here, Alan Pasqua. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, the whole crew is on here, and just a great album. Totally love it. That's my number one. I'm trying to think if there's any that we did not mention here. I think we covered all of the solo albums, I believe.
Yes.
We did. Wow, that's good job, guys. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, the great Allan Holdsworth solo catalog, now we're going to switch gears and we're going to move over to those guest appearances or albums that he was part of someone else's band, right?
Sure.
So here's where, it gets even harder here because he's done some fantastic work on other people's albums. And you could arguably say some of Holdsworth's best stuff is on some of the albums we're going to talk about. Arguably, I think his true voice and vision comes through front and center on his solo albums, and they're legendary for what they are. But he's done some equally legendary stuff on some of these other albums. So we're going to go the other way now. So now we're going to start with Sean, Chuck, George, and myself. So
okay.
Number 5. Okay. I'm going to go with one that's a little unexpected. I'm going to go with K2, Book of the Dead.
Oh,
I believe you reviewed SOT many years ago.
Wow.
This is one that was brought to my attention by my friend Rand, and I was really surprised by it because it's interesting to hear Allan in a prog rocky setting. Usually he's in this more fusion-y setting, and you could tell that he's just soloing. This music was written by someone else, and so it doesn't have the exotic kind of chords that you expect from him. But that's okay, because it's just interesting to hear him in a different context. And the late, great Sean Gearin, dead ringer for, no pun intended, I'm sorry, for Peter Gabriel. I was listening to it, I felt like I was listening to a extra side of Foxtrot or something. It's that kind of era of Genesis that it evokes. So yeah, so if you're the prog rocker and maybe not quite as fusion-y as some folks, check that out because you're going to like it just because it's got that retro prog thing going on. I think it was about 15 years ago it came out.
Yeah, I forgot all about that album.
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to go dig that out. I'm sure it's sitting here in my closet somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty. Like the first song's like 20 minutes long. It's got the keyboard player from Spock's Beard on it. I can't remember who else is on it, but it's quite a well done album.
Yeah, that was good. Glad you brought it up. Good stuff. All right, Chuck.
All right, my number 5 is Soft Machines Bundle.
Oh yeah.
What's the title track? And The Land of Bags and Snakes. The Hazard Profiles are all just rocking stuff. As a matter of fact, it probably seemed a little bit more rockier than what Soft Machine is usually noted for. But he really brings it in. I'm glad that they also have like live footage of them playing this, both on video and as far as like their live setting. Just an amazing album. The whole band around them, Jim Marshall on drums, how could we forget about him? Just a great album. That's where I feel that, that he really just comes along here. Phenomenal album.
That live footage from them at that time period, is that from the BBC or the old gray whistle test, something like that? Man, that's amazing. It has the white SG.
Yes.
And his style kind of changed. You know, back then he was more of an alternate picker, almost like McLaughlin or somebody like that.
Yep.
And then, you know, by the late 70s, he was really into the more legato, where you pick one note and then hammer and pull the rest. And he became really known for that sound. But, you know, he could really alternate pick and shred, you know, with the best of them also. He just kind of moved away from that pretty quickly, I think. But that's a great example on that.
All right, Chuck, what do you got? 5?
No, it's me.
George.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
George.
George, sorry.
My number 5,
Oh, yes.
MVP, Truth in Shredding.
Yeah.
This is 6 fusion standards, 1 Frank Gambale original, mixture of Brecker Brothers, Chick Corea, Wayne Shorter, etc. The contract called for Holdsworth to do at least 2-minute solo on every song. So Mark Varney knew what he was doing. You're going to hire a guy, get something out of him. And Allan enjoyed this recording. He enjoyed playing with Frank. He enjoyed everything about it, which kind of unusual for Allan. But yeah, this completely rips. If you just want to hear him melt the walls, it's a good one.
I bought that when it first came out, and I was like, holy, because I bought it because I was tremendously into Gambale at the time. And then I was like, Gambale and Holdsworth, I must get this. And then yeah, it's absolutely face melting.
It's an excellent album. Very well done.
But it's not, you know what it is? It's shredding, but it's not like shredding like we knew at the time, because we had all the shrapnel guys and all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit different, more tastefully done, you know, more in that kind of jazzy realm. And man, great stuff. Great stuff.
Better songs too.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. All right, my number 5, I think, Chuck, you said you have a copy of this handy. One of a Kind by Bruford from 1979.
Okay.
Classic album. I mean, just, you know, they're fresh off of UK, and Hell's Bells, the 2-part title track, Sahara of Snow. I mean, you know, when you get Bill Bruford, Allan Holdsworth, Jeff Berlin, and Dave Stewart together.
No, Dave Stewart is God.
Painting in Coils.
Yes, Painting in Coils.
Awesome jam. And 5G with Jeff slapping the bass on it. Awesome stuff.
Great stuff. So that's my number 5. Back to Sean.
Number 4 here. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with Gong Espresso 2.
Oh, I don't have that here. Oh.
That's you know, that's the Pierre Merlin era gong that's very percussion based, lots of xylophone and stuff like that. And that's just a interesting context to hear Allan in. And he's not on everything. I think he's just on a couple tracks.
Like 2 or 3 songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite Gong albums, and he makes it all the better, you know.
Well, his guitar tones just makes that specific band of that lineup of Gong just extraordinary. You know, it just fits in well. It's like he was playing like a clarinet throughout most of it. This is beautiful sound.
Good way to put it. And the other album, how do you say it? Gazelle. Yeah, more of the same, and they're a great companion, the two of them. So yeah, Espresso 2, yeah, it's
good pick.
You can't get this one at Starbucks, unfortunately.
Oh, exactly.
Espresso, you got to call Laser's Edge for.
Calling Anthony.
I hope I'm not mentioning anybody's picks, but along those, I didn't choose it for mine. It's in one of my honorable mentions, but the Gongzilla album is also real.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as I mentioned this other
hard album to find. I couldn't find that album.
I got it when it first came out. You know, I got it because it's got Godzilla on the front. Of course, I'm a big Godzilla fan. So I was like, oh, I gotta have that. And then I'm like, whoa, this is actually yeah, it is hard to get now. All right, I guess we're back to me, right? So I'm gonna go with number 4, Tony Williams' Lifetime, Believe It.
Yes,
love that.
Could be even higher. Again, my top 5 here are all pretty much interchangeable, but man, this is the one band I wish would have stayed together a little longer, because I think they had the goods to compete with RTF and Weather Report and Mahavishnu. I think they were just absolutely fantastic. Snake Oil, Protocosmos, Red Alert, Fred, Spock. I mean, you know, Allan Holdsworth, Tony Williams, Tony Newton, Alan Pasqua. Serious fiery fusion, man.
burning stuff.
Absolutely, man. I mean, Mr. Spock, man, you can just listen to that.
Oh,
It's so good, so good. So that's my number 4.
Fred is one of the coolest pieces
yes.
that Allan
Awesome.
ever played on. I love that piece so much.
So good. And I mean, we were talking about drummers before that fall into the fusion camp. I mean, Tony Williams, another guy
Oh,
that's
Oh,
up there with Cobham and
he's
White.
He's like the fountainhead of all those fusion
oh,
guys.
exactly.
Really,
Even back in the 60s.
Yeah,
it's like
so good. I mean,
turned everybody's head around when they heard Tony.
Oh,
can you imagine being like 18, 19 years old and getting the gig with Miles Davis? I mean, how cool is that, right?
I played with Eric Dolphy, so
Great stuff. All right, back to
me.
do we go out of order? God, I'm
No,
Trying to skip ahead a little bit.
it's me now.
Yeah, do it,
All
Charles.
right. Okay. All right. My number 4 is UK. Their debut album. What's the In the Dead of the Night suite? 30 years. Alaska. Although it's like his soloing on Nevermore and mental medication, but it's 30 years where you get to hear how brilliant of a guitarist he was. And sadly, this band was just a one-off, and when you read stories about how he was pretty much like he loved the guys, but he just was kind of sad in there because he said that he was tired of playing the same thing over and over every night. Just led to Bruford. But another great album, UK's debut.
That's maybe the greatest late 70s progressive rock album.
Exactly.
It's like while a lot of the other bands were kind of grappling with the oncoming 80s and punk, they were kind of free of all that. They just made this killer prog that kind of reminds me of what ELP could have become had they not gone to Love Beach. Sort of. I mean, they wouldn't have had guitar playing like that, but
right.
But
and that's
one of
the greatest supergroups of all time, I think.
Yep.
And I screwed up. I went out of order. I'm going to blame it on the coronavirus vaccine. It should have been Sean, Chuck, George, and then me. And somehow I slotted myself in there because I'm like, so George, go for it.
Well, my number 4.
Oh, beautiful album.
Heavy Machinery. Those are the guys that played with Yngwie.
Yes.
Johansson Brothers, formerly of Yngwie. So maybe a lot of people were surprised by this. I wasn't. I knew how good they were.
George, hold that up again. Let's compare our covers on that because
yeah, that's the reissue. That's
okay.
This is on Jens's dad's label, Heptagon. It's just great. One of the better trios you're going to hear. It's actually supposed to be a quartet. Andy West recorded the bass. And there was a studio accident. And they lost all the tracks. But you won't miss them. I mean, some high energy stuff. Really good. Especially Good Morning, Mr. Coffee. I want to wake you up.
Oh, it's a fiery album.
Allan and Jens trading. Jens is a guy that can stand toe to toe with Allan and slug it out. So
killer player. Yeah.
If you like a little rockier side of things, it's one to get.
Yeah, slightly metally.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
All right, Sean, back to you.
I'm going to go with Enigmatic Ocean from Jean-Luc Ponty. This is an interesting album because, his main guitar player was somebody that a lot of prog rock people know, Daryl Stuermer, who wound up being the live guitarist in Genesis from 1977 forward, except for that one tour, but we won't get into that. So it's interesting to hear Allan almost sparring with Daryl in a way, it's because they trade off a lot, each one of them will just have their turn. That's the thing about John Luke's music. It's like it's kind of orderly. It's like everybody gets to solo in their own space without people stepping on your toes. There's a tune on there called, I think it's called The Struggle of the Turtle to the Sea, like that has just the greatest interplay between him and Daryl. And it's so interesting because, Daryl's very much Mr. Staccato, alternate picking, shreddy, and Allan is, Mr. Legato, so it's such a nice.
And it works well there.
Yeah, it does. It's just a really great pairing, and I'm sorry Allan wasn't on more of John Luke's stuff, because I think he really added an extra spice to the whole recipe that just elevated it, and probably makes that my favorite 70s Ponty album. Cosmic Messenger's awesome. Imaginary Voyage, they all have great stuff from Daryl, but Enigmatic Ocean just feels like that taken to the next level. So yeah.
You know what it is? I think that Allan's soloing style has that kind of ethereal quality, which matches very well with Jean-Luc's violin style.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And they go so well together. Whereas I think Daryl Sturmer brought more of like a rock sensibility to some of these albums, which I love Daryl Sturmer as a player. I think he's
phenomenal.
Amazing. And I think they work well together because they're so different. But I think I agree with Sean. I would have loved to have heard Holdsworth play on more of Jean-Luc's albums, like the whole album, because I think he did some solos on a couple later albums, but I would have loved to have heard him on a full album again, like on Enigmatic Ocean.
Yeah. Great stuff.
Exactly. Well, my number 3, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
We didn't go back in the order that we should have gone through.
Okay, all right. My number 3, once again.
Okay.
Great
minds think alike.
Yes. What's it? When you think about the stuff that Allan played on there, and when he's playing, despite all the other great players on there, Sturmer, Savad,
Smith.
great drumming, Smith. Yes, Smith. Oh, just
Journey,
kills on there.
It's like a lot of people don't realize what a fusion badass he was.
He's awesome.
And then Tribal Tech later on,
well, Tribal Tech guys,
or with playing with those guys. Yeah, Steve Smith did.
Oh man, just an amazing album. What you get? It's like I can't really say it's his coming out party, because he's played on other great albums beforehand and afterwards, but he really shined on there, just like what everyone was mentioning. Just imagine what he could have done with Jean-Luc Ponty had he played on an entire album. But we could all just dream upon that.
Great stuff. All right, George.
Not you?
No, I'll go after you. We'll go back in the order that we did the first round.
Okay.
I'm the one. I screwed it all up. I jumped in.
Tony Williams, believe it. Yeah, it's just a landmark of mid-70s fusion. Not a bad song on it. In fact, a lot of these are fusion standards now. Fred is pretty much a standard. Protocosmos is a standard. I mean, Allan really pumps these songs up, and it was more or less a one album thing, because the next album, while it's the same lineup,
it was a totally different album.
$1 Million Legs.
It's just, no, but this album is a must.
Totally agree.
Agreed. Love it.
UK, my number 3. I think we've talked about this album a lot on the channel, and it's just such a great lineup, such a great album. I mean, In the Dead of Night, you could just have that song on here. You don't need anything else, right? Anthony, if you're watching, Eddie Rule's on here too. So
props for Mr. Jobson. Always brings something wonderful.
That's right. So yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff, and it's just amazing how many people don't know about that UK album, or don't even know that. I mean, I guess because the band kind of came and went so quickly, but man, one of the great debuts of all time, I think.
Exactly.
Great stuff. All right, Sean, number 2.
I'm going to go with Feels Good to Me from Bruford.
Ooh,
I think this is a fantastic companion to One Size Fits All, or no.
One of a kind.
That's right. They might go give it the Zappa record too.
Why not, right?
It could get worse. This is more of what you hear on the next album, except it has some vocals from Annette Peacock, which add a little bit of extra flavor. And I've heard mixed reviews about those, but I like her voice.
No, I like her as well.
And the way they have her mixed, like on that tune, Back to the Beginning, it's like you're jamming, you know, it's like, oh, this is a King Crimson kind of thing. And all of a sudden, they got her turned up really loud. It's almost like she's tapping you on the shoulder. Hey, fella, rise and shine. It's like, whoa, where'd she come from? So, well, I think it was meant to kind of surprise you when and it does. And I love the title track. John Goodsall from Brand X plays some rhythm on that. You know, it's a very un-Allan-esque kind of rhythm thing. It's like, okay, that wasn't him. And there's actually a great clip of that lineup playing on the Old Grey Whistle Test that I recommend. They had Neil Murray subbing on bass, and he's awesome in his own right.
Neil's great, yeah.
Yes.
And you can kind of tell it's different because Holdsworth just, you know, plays the solo. You know, none of that rhythm stuff's in there, but it's okay. Live, it doesn't really matter. It's great. So, and then there's some great mallet work. You know, Bill actually was pretty good at playing xylophone or whatever it was, marimba, on a tune called Beelzebub, which is just one of the coolest Bruford band tunes. And there's another one called Sample and Hold that's equally stunning. So. Yeah, it's almost like a companion. It's almost like you can't have one without the other, you know, when it comes to those two albums. And then the third one, Gradually Going Tornado, is not Allan, but got to give props to the mysterious John Clark, I think it was, that sounded so much like Allan, you almost thought he was still there. You know, at least I did. And he did it all with no whammy bar and little really thin strings, you know, so all those bends and wacky kind of Holdsworth kind of things, you can kind of hear it on the live album that lineup did. It's like, wow, they were really lucky to find somebody that could just step in there. And
it's a shame, he's such a good guitarist too, you know, but you know, anybody that steps in the shoes of Allan Holdsworth really never gets any of the props, especially if they sound like them.
There's very few. It's funny, I was chatting with Mark Bonilla a few weeks ago, and he was talking about I don't know if y'all remember, but Eddie Jobson had kind of a super group that he played Nearfest with. He had like Mark singing and playing guitar. He had Billy Sheehan on bass. He had Marco Miniman and Mike Mangini on drums. It was just like the super lineup. And I remember Mark playing the solo on Nevermore and making it sound wonderful. But he's like, nah, man. He goes, Alex Makachek, and that's the guy.
Yes.
And they actually played Nearfest the next year, you know, as UK and with Gary Husband and Wetton. So it was kind of like we got kind of a double dose if you were going, you know, those years, you know. So anyway, I digress.
Yeah, Holdsworth, man. He was one of a kind.
Really was.
I think like Ollie Haskell, right, replaced him in Tempest. And he had a kind of similar style.
He's an amazing.
It was the opposite.
Guitar player, man.
Ali Haswell was. He was just amazing. In fact,
not enough gets said about him. You know.
But so there's talks that he actually influenced Holdsworth. Wow. Yeah, he was crazy.
You know, because he was way ahead of it at the time. You know, I mean, the stuff that Ollie was playing back then, it was like,
just an amazing guitarist.
Way ahead.
Another one. Well, my number 2 is One of a Kind. You know, Hell's Bells, the One of a Kind, Both of the Sweets, Fainting Coils, 5G, and I got to give props to Anthony for Forever Until Sunday with the Jobson's uncredited violin solo on there. The Saharas of Snow, just another amazing album. Manacles, you know, might not sound the best, but it's still a great song as well. One of a Kind is my number 2.
So Anthony, we got 2 mentions tonight. Can we make it 3? Can we get 3 DJ mentions in the show tonight? Huh? All right, George, what do you got?
My number 2.
Yes. Oh, it got it signed too.
Jeff Berlin.
Nice.
I guess we'll make it 3 because no one mentioned that. Doesn't Jobson get a songwriting credit on here?
For
yes, Sahara Snow.
Yep.
So
3 for 3.
And actually, Allan gets a credit on here, the Abingdon Chasp, which is a good song also. And yeah, this album's perfect. You can't skip a song on here. And there's other fusion standards on here too. I know Virgil Zanotti's band used to do 5G. Hell's Bells, PSMS did that. So yeah, it's just a classic album.
It's such an interesting take on fusion. It's so different from the other fusion that you think of. But it's right in there. It hangs nicely with it. But I think those albums kind of get overlooked by a lot of the fusion crowd because of the prog kind of connection Bruford has. So
it doesn't even sound like the other two so much. So
No.
This is because it's instrumental. It's probably the one that stands out.
yeah, it's pretty much everybody's favorite.
Love the album.
All right. My number 2, right? Is that where number 2? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Enigmatic Ocean.
Beautiful.
Love it. I mean, everything you guys said, it's epic. It's and still only, was this 35 minutes, right?
Pretty short.
So many of these albums are so short. It's crazy. But you listen to it and it's like, it's just long enough. It's absolute perfection. I love the whole lineup here. I mean, a lot of these bands we're talking about today are just like crazy good musicianship and just the legendary players that are in some of these bands. Yeah. And to me, Ponte and Holdsworth, what a great team. I wish they did more together. So that's my number 2.
Props to Ralph Armstrong.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, how could we forget
Get out
him?
of Dodge.
Never talk about, what a phenomenal bass player.
And he really, I mean, those, well, you can hear hints of that when he was on Visions of the Emerald from Mahavishnu.
Yep.
But you really hear him have more room to flex his muscle, so to speak, on the Ponte stuff. And there's just, I forget the name of that last tune on Enigmatic, but it's just, man, it's cooking.
The sweet
Struggle of the Turtle to the Sea.
Yes.
I think,
The
man, I
Sweet,
think that must have been the one. Yeah, it's just like,
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, the title track is great, and the Trans Love Express,
Yes.
nice and funky. Yeah, it's good.
Yep.
Great album. All right, Sean, you're number 1.
yeah, okay, well,
Drum roll, please.
play that funky music from Dweezil's album. I'm just kidding, but this is an interesting thing to check out on YouTube sometime. It did happen. Well, I'm gonna have to go with Tony Williams' "Believe It." I think that's my favorite out of all of them. Yeah, you guys have pretty much covered it already, but I just think that it was such an amazing fusion band, and it's a shame there wasn't more.
Yeah.
But, and that's another one that kind of gets overlooked occasionally. So, if you have fusion fans, if you haven't checked that album out, you need it, so check it out. It's awesome.
Top 5 fusion record of all time?
I would say so. I would really say
Top
so.
10 for sure.
Definitely top 10. Yeah, definitely top 10.
A lot of competition for that top 5 spot.
Yeah,
So many other great albums.
Yeah. A lot of good ones.
You hear that?
Yeah, it sounds like around my neighborhood too.
Yeah. I don't live in downtown Manhattan, I promise.
Well, man, sheesh, I live in the Bronx, and all you heard are just motorcycles going up and down.
Welcome to New York.
Exactly.
I live out in the sticks, and I still hear that.
Oh man. Oh man. Well, guys, my number 1 once again is also "Believe It" as well. I still remember what's the day that Holdsworth had died. What's it happened to be I'm a big baseball fan. I remember watching the Mets game, and it was the 70th anniversary of Jackie Robinson Day, which was April 15th. And the first song I thought about when I heard that he passed about was "Snake Oil." It's a song I can't listen to anymore without having a few tears come down my eye. That solo at the end, along with Mr. Spock, is just killer. It's just one of those albums where every single song, just like what George just said, every single song on there is just unskippable. And then also I have a couple of songs on there, like a couple of outtake songs, "Celebration" and "Let's Be." "Celebration" is actually a play on Mr. Spock, if I'm not mistaken, and "Let's Be" is "Let's Be" is actually is actually a play on Mr. Spock, while "Celebration" is a totally different track.
Very
Oh,
cool.
just a great album. I think that's probably some of the best playing that I ever heard from Tony Williams on a different album outside of his stuff. Believe it.
Good choice.
Can I toss in a couple that folks might want to check out they're not aware of?
Sure.
Jack Bruce did an album called A Question of Time around 1990. There's a tune on there called Obsession. Check it out. Great Allan guest spot. And Level 42, you know, he was actually
I forgot about that.
in band for a little while.
But Alan Murphy.
It was after their 80s hits. And ironically, Jacko Jaksic took his place later on. And they did an album called Guaranteed that Alan's on. And that's interesting to hear him in a pop, probably the most pop context you'll find him in. So
he loved playing with them, from what he said. He said he really liked playing with them.
he did. I remember when I chat with Jocko, he was a little miffed at him for taking that gig. And he's like, I don't think you really wanted to be in a pop band that bad. Anyway, they eventually made up and put it behind them. But yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, George, you're number one.
Everybody else already said it.
Enigmatic Ocean.
Enigmatic Ocean.
Perfect album. Nobody mentioned maybe the best solo, one of his best solos ever, Nostalgic Lady. I know it's
yes.
out, but man, that solo is incredible. And also, Ponte first heard Alan on Believe It. That's why he tracked him down and said, I got to get this guy on my record too. He was getting to be the hot player there. So that's how it came to be. And yeah, it's a shame he didn't do more. And it's a shame there's no Boots out there, because apparently he did do some dates. But
that sucks.
Can you
there's
imagine?
nothing out there.
Wow.
Soft Machine Bundle's my number one.
Oh, brilliant.
My favorite Soft Machine album, and he's the big reason why. Again, this kind of takes the next step from Soft Machine's more avant-garde jazz beginnings, you know, psychedelic music, and then into the avant-garde thing. And this is just total fusion. I mean, Hazard Profile, all 5 parts of it, just absolutely amazing. Land of the Bag Snake, title track, just Floating World, just great stuff. I love it. You know, we're talking here, just want to kind of put it in perspective. So this is 1975. So he basically goes from Tempest to, and then this, and in the same year, Believe It. And then 77 is Enigmatic Ocean. 78 is UK. 79 is Bruford. So basically, he's just like every year.
Within a 5-year span.
You missed 76, he did Gong.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, Gong. Yep.
78's the other Gong.
Yep. So this guy was busy in those couple of years. I mean, really busy. So yeah, I like the Gong stuff too. My honorable mentions would be the Gong stuff, the
Gongzilla.
absolutely, Heavy Machinery, absolutely. I like that first Tempest album a lot.
Yes, so did I.
Right? It's kind of like Cream type of stuff. Dig that, and I do want to. If nobody's heard him, you got to listen to him. The 2 Chad Wackerman solo albums of 40 Reasons and The View from 91 and 93 are really good. Really good. They're very similar to a lot of the Holdsworth solo stuff from the 90s. And then that Gongzilla Suffer album from 95 is smoking. It's got basically Holdsworth and Bon Lazaga kind of trading off solos on the whole album. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. So,
It's only 2 tracks, but Planet X Quantum also great.
yeah. And everyone knows the story about that, right? He was supposed to do the entire album.
Yep.
Then at the end, he was like, nah, I'm just kind of. Rennie was like, what? I gotta go find some other guitar players. That whole album would have sounded like with all him. I mean, it was great as it was with the way they released it, right? But
oh man, you know, this guy was just a living legend, man. You know, it's just so sad that not too many people know about him. You know, I have a few friends that are like, oh, who's this Allan Holdsworth guy you're talking about? It's like, well, if you're into guitar shredding without the shredding, that's the guy that you should listen to.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. And the sad thing is, it's like the guy was so beloved by fans and fellow musicians and he never got the credit he deserved. He never got the commercial acceptance. I mean, the guy just, you know, just never really made, you know, the kind of money and got the kind of success in this business that a man of his genius should have.
Exactly.
You know, I thought of one other one we should check out. There's the kind of later Soft Machine stuff called Soft Works.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Label.
Thank you very much, Pete.
That's a really kind of probably one of the most recent ones that he did that was not a solo album of his own.
Very well done, especially for such a late period stuff. They're actually very well done.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Pete.
Yeah. If you like the Soft Machine stuff, definitely check out Soft Works too.
And also this Blues for Tony.
Oh, I was just listening to that this morning.
Yeah, it's a tribute to Tony Williams. So it's Holdsworth, Pasqua, Jimmy Haslip, and Chad Wackerman. 2 discs, all sorts of you know, classic songs from Tony Williams and other stuff. Yeah, this is quite good also. This came out in, what year was this?
2009.
Right, 2009.
There's a great Allan DVD also doing a lot of that material and a lot of his solo as well. That has Chad Wackerman on drums, Alan Pasqua, and left-handed bass player.
Haslip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Smoking, wonderfully filmed DVD. Highly suggested.
A lot of good stuff. And we didn't even cover like everything here today, although I think we talked about quite a lot of the stuff that's, you know, highly recommended. But yeah, this guy has a tremendous discography of so much great music, and whether it be, you know, his own solo stuff or as a sideman or whatever. And just a big loss. And, you know, the world is a darker place without Allan Holdsworth, I think. And like I said, I just, you wish that at some point in time, he gets fully recognized for the genius that he was by, you know, more than just this small community of people who, you know who he is and treasure his work. Cause I think he deserves it.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So there you have it, everybody. Our favorite Allan Holdsworth solo albums ranked, and our favorite Allan Holdsworth as sideman or guest musician albums ranked. So feel free to do the same in the comments below. And we'll be sure to check those out. I want to thank Sean and Chuck and George for joining me here on this edition of In the Prog Seat. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. Sean, you want to plug some stuff going on over on your channel?
Well, thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. Well, if you don't know, I have a musical talk show, not unlike Pete's, but a little different. And I speak with a lot of fusion and prog artists, and some classic rockers and pop people as well from time to time. And this weekend, I've got a guy that kind of straddles the line. We got Jack Hughes from Wang Chung.
Oh, excellent.
What you might not know is a lot of these pop guys from the 80s grew up listening to prog and loved it. And Jack is one of them. And he especially loves the Canterbury stuff. So, and there's a recent book that's been written about it that I think he had a hand in. So me and my old friend Rob LaDuca, one of the Nearfest founders, are going to interview Jack this Saturday afternoon. And then you can find all of these videos on our page at YouTube. It's /SOAL Night Live, which stands for Story of a Life, because each one of these is kind of biographical in nature. So Soul Night Live over at YouTube. I upload them as soon as they're done, or you can watch them live. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, tune in over there and check it out live, or check out the tidier version on YouTube later. And coming up in the coming weeks, I also am chatting with David Payton, who played with Kate Bush and Alan Parsons. And he also had a huge hit in the 70s, Ho, 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 It's Magic, with the band Pilot. And Billy Cobham's coming back. We had the pleasure of chatting with him a few weeks ago.
Oh, he's hilarious.
And we only got up through about Mahavishnu. And it's like, man, we didn't get a chance to talk about Spectrum. So he graciously granted us another chance to talk. So we're going to focus more on his solo career this time around. And that's April 30th. So, and our anniversary show's coming up May 3rd. So just come on by and party with us.
Oh, good. Yeah, the Jack show should be cool. He appeared on Sea of Tranquility Fall Fest back in November. So he was kind of like a late addition to the festival. And a lot of people are like, is he really fit with all this prog and metal stuff? But that album of his is kind of proggy, right? And he's kind of a fan. So yeah.
Wait, who?
Jack Hughes.
Jack
Oh
Hughes.
yeah, absolutely. He has a really excellent solo album that I suggest checking out. I believe it's called Primitif, something like that. So yeah, cool
The
stuff.
album that he did with Tony Banks as well, Strictly
Absolutely.
Incorporated.
Like if you like Duke and
Mhm.
that kind of beautiful piano work that's on that album, this is a
Mhm.
direct extension of it, that Strictly Inc. album.
Mhm.
It's kind of like the 90s Genesis album I wish Genesis would have made instead of learning they couldn't dance.
Yeah,
It's an okay
exactly.
record.
Instead of those
Yeah.
albums that we will not mention, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yes, thank you.
He shall remain nameless.
So cool. So check out Sean's channel and make sure you subscribe here at Sea of Tranquility if you're watching and you haven't already. If you haven't, I'd be very surprised. But stay tuned for more programming coming up here on the channel this week, and we'll be here right back on Tuesday night once again for another edition of In the Prog Seat next week. So for George and Chuck and Sean, I am Pete Pardo. Stay tuned for Lynn Versace and myself, top 10 songs of Meatloaf, and a special tribute to Jim Steinman, who we lost today.
Yes.
It's coming
Rest
up
in
just in
peace.
a little bit. So stay tuned for that later on, and we'll see you all then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Y'all take care.
Okay. Mhm.